Sally with Sally Cares, and we're doing this series of talks about things, just things you're thinking, thoughts that you might have, questions you might have. And Lauren, the talent behind the recording, is my daughter, and so we were talking about different topics, and we were making this little series, and she's going to give me a topic, and then I'm going to talk about it for a few minutes, and hopefully you'll find some of it interesting, not too boring, and we can just keep coming up with new topics. And if you have any good ideas, just put them in the comments below. So remember to like, share, and subscribe these videos. And the whole purpose of this is to help people figure out how to manage things when it comes to life, disabilities, challenges, you name it. But I am an occupational therapist, and I see patients all the time, and I still see patients all the time at 100 years old, and in the home. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just, there are things that I come at the end of my day, I think, I really need to say something about this, because it's clearly on the minds of so many people that we just don't talk about some of this stuff, I think. But anyway, okay,
Right.
Miss Lauren.
Okay, so one of the topics that we had talked about was caregivers in the home, having an agency that provides them versus having a family caregiver or having a friend as a caregiver. So what are some of your thoughts on that, Mom?
So this comes up all the time. People have needs where one or two, could be a couple that's elderly, or one person in a marriage or partnership has needs, and the other person needs to get out of the house, maybe have some respite time or run errands or do things, and cannot leave their loved one alone. I think one of the first things that I always question is whether or not they have an emergency alert system around their neck. That's sort of number one, because they're inexpensive, but you want to shop it so you know whether or not you're buying one that you push the button and they call 911, because sometimes it's that fast, or others will sometimes have a list of people they're supposed to call before 911 gets called. So maybe the person that's left alone at home just needs to let you know something, or they need to alert you, but they can't use their own mobile phone accurately or something like that. So having a home safety device to communicate is always a good consideration, even sometimes before you get a caregiver in the home. So that's number one. Number two is when you need to have a person help manage a 3 to 4 hour to 5 hour home alone situation where there's a meal involved, or where there's this, that, or the other. There's some safety things you want to keep in mind, as well as what you're looking for in a caregiver. Number one, safety wise, how well does the person who's staying at home, how well is that person walking? What's their balance like? Are they using a walker? Are they able to remember to use the walker? How are they carrying a sandwich to the room where the TV is, and can they do that and hold on to their cane, or do they need a walker with a seat so they can sit everything on the seat and push the walker, to the couch? That's for another video. But when it comes to determining, because it's a hard step for some people to actually hire people, it seems. It first starts out with, I'm going to have my neighbor come over and sit with John while he's here, and I have to leave to go get my hair done, and the neighbor volunteers. But then you don't want to take advantage of that. So then you start to think, well, I should probably hire somebody to come here. Or you have a relative, but then again, you don't want to take advantage of that for too long, because that becomes difficult. And you have to pay attention to the fact of how old is the person that you're asking to come in as a caregiver too, because in Venice, Florida, where we are, neighbors aren't 20 years old. They're in there. They're up there. So even though everybody's got good intentions, you have to make sure that the person you're asking to sit with your loved one has the capability to really help them if they need help. So that's when people start to think, maybe I need to find a caregiver that really knows how to be a caregiver, that could take them to the bathroom, help them with toileting, help them with hygiene after toileting. I mean, you don't ask your neighbor for that, you know. I mean, there comes a time when things get a little bit more personal, and maybe your loved one isn't really comfortable with that, but could be more comfortable with a caregiver that comes in from an agency because they don't know that person and that's their job, right? So I can tell you that I find a lot of people will tend to go towards a friend of a friend type thing. Oh, I know a person and she does that work all the time and she's great and she took care of Susie's mother and blah, blah, blah. Okay, all I'm saying is if you start out with something like that because it's cheaper than going with an agency, you take on a lot of liability when you do that. And by that I mean if that Susie person falls in your house, what are you going to do? Yeah. If that Susie person ends up getting an emergency and their kids need to be picked up from school, Susie may not show up for 2 more weeks. You know, so you have to realize that the value of an agency is a couple. One, they're licensed and insured, okay, and the liability piece is important. The other is that they come with, and they're supposed to come with, the capability to do all of these things that you need help with, the toileting, the bathing, the whatever, because many times, if you set it up correctly, you're going to have your loved one get their main shower, a really good shower, 2 or 3 times a week when they come, so you don't have to do that if it's hard for you to do that. So there's that value of expectation. The other thing is you can sit down with an agency administrator and say, okay, what are the services that you're actually going to offer? And it becomes much more of a contractual agreement where you're actually purchasing the services and the expectation that those services will be done. And if they're not done, you say, see ya. There's another agency, you know? I mean, I can't tell you how many times Sally gets a little bit excited when I walk in and a caregiver from an agency and that person's sitting there on their phone doing the scroll, you know, answering Facebook issues, you know, going through that. I'm like, no, that's kind of not why you're here, okay? So do I sit there and confront that and make everybody uncomfortable? No, I don't. I really don't. But do I get in my car and I let the agency know and the owner of the agency? Absolutely, I do. Now, that would be me. But you are the purchaser of that service, so then you have to know that people, that when they come in, even from an agency, all of a sudden, it doesn't take long, maybe a few weeks, people start to feel at home. People start to feel like they're one of the family, and they're not, okay? But people start to feel like, oh, I can be 15 minutes late. That's okay. I'm gonna stop by the store and get this first before I... Really? So all I'm saying is you don't have to iron with a you don't have to rule with an iron fist. That's what I was going for. But you know, you might have to iron, but you don't have to iron. but I get so aggravated when people get taken advantage of too. And let me just tell you that I really do believe caregivers get into the business of caregiving because they love people. You know, they really do. But when every situation's different, and you would be surprised or not surprised that when you find out that someone is sometimes the reverse, taking advantage of a caregiver. Okay, when they walk in, now I want the floors done and I want the linens washed and I want this done and make dinner and do this. And the girl looks at her watch and says, well, I'm here for 4 hours. Do you want me to do anything for your husband? So you have to remember that you're there to, number one, take care of the person, and then, yes, help out in the home, absolutely. But they try to make it pretty clear from an agency perspective that what you're doing is cleaning up behind the client. So you give them a shower, you wipe down the shower, and you know, throw the towels in the laundry and do that kind of thing. Maybe change the bed and all that. That's part of the deal. But to scrub the floor, not so much, you know, and that can create a problem. So You have to approach it with a clear vision of what you want. You have to make sure you know whether or not you want a male or a female caregiver. You have to realize that you have a right to say, you know what, Susie was not my cup of tea, okay? So please don't send her back. You have to realize that that's okay. And so there's a lot to it. Don't fall for the idea that getting your neighbor to come over or somebody who knows somebody, that's the best choice, because there's always liability involved. And you want people to know that, you want to know that those people know what they're supposed to be doing. So I think that's really what I can say, Lauren, about those things.
That's great.
Anyway, if you want to share your experiences, comments, concerns, questions, please do. Just like, share, and subscribe this video, and we're just going to kind of keep having these conversations. And if you know a topic that you'd like me to talk about, please put it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.